Talking defense after day 2 of Ohio State spring football practice here Thursday at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. I'm Nathan Baird from cleveland.com, along with Stephen Means and Andrew Gillis. Talked to Denzel Burke, talked to Jordan Hancock, talked to Jim Knowles about the defensive backs. It's obviously one of the more exciting positions on this team this year, with just the depth of talent that they have, plus the depth of experience. And something that just a couple years ago, Jim Knowles was talking about how when he first got here, the corners were so young and so inexperienced, the receivers were so good that you kind of went into practice every day and were like, well, just do the best you can. And he almost maybe let them off the hook. And that led to some competitive problems when those guys got into games that year. So that's kind of been rolling around in my head, led to some questions we're asking today. But it led to a kind of a debate off to the side. If you had to pick right now, which room is, how do we want to say it? Which room is better? Which room is better? And we'll just say which room is better, and you can decide whatever that means to you. So between the, let's just say specifically the corners and the receivers, which room is better?
I think in 2024, the cornerback room is better. And Jeremiah Smith being here throws off the math because he's like the greatest wide receiver recruit ever. But, the cornerback room has a 5-star corner, freshman on their roster, too. They've got a top 50 recruit in Bryce West and Aaron Scott. So they've got their future's pretty bright, too. Denzel Burke revealed that he had a first or second round grade, which I'm sure that's probably where Emeka Egbuka was as well, first or second round. And he also revealed Ohio State's NIL is in a really good place because if it wasn't, he would not be on this roster, like point blank. If this was 2015, he would have gone pro, period. But I think, and it's interesting because this kind of runs through Denzel Burke, right? We've seen the cornerback room go from here to here during Denzel Burke's career. And you've been asking these questions, and we've been having this conversation. I think the top 3 of Denzel Burke, Davison Igbinosun, Jordan Hancock, when you look at their both talent and experience, is probably better on day 2 of practice, of spring practice, even though on day 1, Denzel did admit that the wide receiver got the better of them, but they came back on day 2, which is a crazy conversation. But that experience and talent is probably better than what the top 3 of the wide receiver room is right now, which is probably Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, Jaden Ballard, or Brandon Ennis, whatever way you want to put it right now. Now, this is an evolving conversation, which is a good thing for Ohio State, but I think it just says something about how far the corners have come since Tim Walton took over the room.
Yeah, that's kind of been my premise all along, that like the way that they've sort of flipped this. 2019, when I first got here, you would have talked about it kind of the way we're talking about it right now. You had Jeff Okudah, Damon Arnett, Sean Wade you would have put in that mix. And like those guys were ahead of the receivers in terms of like the totality of their performance. And then that really flipped a couple of years into that. And now I think for this spring it has flipped back. But then when Denzel Burke said that, like, oh, that kind of got us on day 1, I was like, oh, really? Like that surprised me a little bit. I kind of thought maybe you guys would be pushing them around. So who would you put, Andrew, between the receivers and the corners right now?
It's the corners. I do agree with Steven that long term, you maybe want to hold off judgment, but I look at the corner room right now. Denzel Burke, he said it today, he got a first or second round grade, like first, second round grade from the NFL Draft Committee. Jordan Hancock, I mean, he's a what? I mean, if you had to guess, a mid-round pick kind of right now, I think that'd probably be fair. Yeah, early day 2. I have made the case before. I think NFL teams are going to love Davison Igbinosun because of his size, because of his willingness to tackle. I think that's a guy who could sneak into the end of the first round. Like, I mean, as right now, I think he might be kind of a first-round projection. We'll see how the 2024 season goes. But do you have that at receiver? I don't think right now. I'm not ready to say Carnell Tate's a first-round player. He certainly could be. We have ample evidence of history. We have ample evidence of his talent. We just haven't seen it yet. Is Jaden Ballard a first or second round receiver? Not right now. We haven't seen it yet. There just haven't been opportunities. With corner, you have seen it. I have eyes. I have a brain, allegedly, and I can see it. I can see it happen, and I can see these people do these things. So for me, it's the cornerback room, but the Jeremiah Smith conversation is really interesting because I think long-term you could make this case. You got Jeremiah Smith here. You got, like, he might be the best receiver or corner who have come through here of this entire group, right? Like, if you were to weigh all of these guys' Ohio State careers when they're done, when everybody has filtered out of here, Jeremiah Smith might be the best one. So that does kind of make you pause for a long-term situation, but right now it's corner.
Yeah, and I still wonder if there's more high-end NFL talent in the receiver room in totality when you look at where guys are going to be 3 or 4 years down the line. And that's not discounting, though, that there have been some pretty top-shelf recruits come in this cornerback group the last couple of years. But as Stephen very aptly said, the Jeremiah Smith thing kind of throws off the math right now. We see what that's gonna be, and we see what it even is right now. We'll see what it is on the field this fall, but it could be something special pretty quick. So that makes it a little bit tough to make a super accurate assessment. I will say I think it's a great thing for this team that right now you might be getting into a dynamic where a receiver group that is that talented and has proven itself as a totality, not maybe some of these individual guys, but this receiver group has proven itself to be, the kind of the standard right now in the country. And now you're going to have schmucks like us out here talking like, oh no, the corners, they've got the edge right now. And now you're going to have a group, and not that we influence it, but I think just that general thought out there that maybe they have something to prove this spring or this off season probably makes that group better in the long run. It kind of brings another edge to them. This isn't a group that should be complacent by any means right now, just because they have so many new faces. You're replacing 2 starters, and some of these guys are very young. Some of these guys haven't been here before. But at the same time, there is just so much praise that's kind of heaped on those guys even before they get here that it's probably healthy for them to be, if they can come in and have those corners have an edge on them a little bit and make them prove it. Whether it's here in the spring, whether it's what goes on in preseason camp. I think it maybe makes these receivers better by the time we get to September. A lot more talk about that on Buckeye Talk, and get the text 614-350-3315. News, updates, analysis every day from cleveland.com.